Hello, dear friends. I'm Kalyani, and this is another session of our TES reading club. Today, we are reading Paradise Lost, one of the classics of world literature, Paradise Lost, Book 6. As you all know, TES Reading Club has been reading various classics of world literature every week. And this is a very serious and passionate activity that enthusiasts of literature associated with TES have taken up the initiative to do. We consider this a very important part of our understanding, studying, and teaching literature. We also hope to motivate the large number of students in the country and abroad, if possible, who are using YouTube in innovative ways to study. We can join together and start reading sessions and continue it so that we will get to experience literature in unique ways. This experience of reading and reading together is an amazing way of connecting with literature, connecting with the themes and characters, the style of authors, and also in connecting with the community of literature students. As you know, Paradise Lost is a literary epic by John Milton, perhaps the most famous and most important canonical text of English literature. And as you also know, Book 6 comes before the fall of man. The archangel Raphael is talking to Adam, and he is giving an account of the war. He is talking about what happened before Adam and Eve were created, how Satan rebelled, and a description of this war leads to Adam asking him questions. Raphael warns Adam against Satan, but despite the warning, in Book 9, the fall of man happens. Eve and then Adam eat the forbidden fruit. So this is a book where you get to hear the narrative of the heavenly battle, which plays a crucial role in the Bible. We have a number of our TES Reading Club volunteers here. They are going to read you parts of Book 6, and I hope you will read with us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your continuous support. Please like the video and share it with friends so that more and more people will get motivated by this endeavor. Over to TES Reading Club members. Paradise Lost, Book 6.
Raphael continues his account of the war. He tells of how Abdiel, a champion of God now, challenged Satan and struck him a mighty blow, and how Michael gave the order for the heavenly hosts to engage the enemy, and himself dealt Satan a grievous wound, which humbled his pride. Raphael's account goes on to tell of how the rebel angels in that first night of the war dug mines, extracted metal, mingled sulfurous and nitrous foam to make gunpowder, and made great guns. The description of their effect is very powerful. Their roar, imbowel with outrageous noise there, and all her entrails store, disgorging fall. Their devilish blood chained thunderbolts and hail of iron globes at the first stone, backed by these weapons of mass destruction. Michael and his forces retreated in confusion, but soon rallied, and so another day of the battle passed. On the third day, as God the Father had ordained, the sun triumphed and hurled the rebels down into hell, which is where we found Satan and his host at the beginning of book first. Once again, for this reader at least, it's difficult to warm to a God who watches complacently while his forces suffer terrible punishment, deliberately waiting before letting his son rout the enemy so as to make his triumph seem more splendid, that the glory may be thine of ending this great war. That's not divinity, it's public relations. We don't have to think that this was a deliberate strategy on Milton's part. It's not uncommon for writers to be unaware of exactly what effect their portrayal of this character or that is having on the reader. When Blake said that Milton was of the rebels' party, he was careful to add that the poet belonged there without knowing it. The argument. Raphael continues to relate how Michael and Gabriel went sent for to battle against Satan and his angels. The first fight described Satan and his powers retire under night. He calls a council, invents devilish engines, which in the second day's fight put Michael and his angels to some disorder. But they at length pulling up mountains overwhelmed both the force and machines of Satan. Yet the tumult not so ending. God, on the third day, sends Messiah, his son, for whom he had reserved the glory of that victory. He, in the power of his Father, coming to the place and causing all his legions to stand still on either side, with his chariot and thunder driving into the midst of his enemies, pursued them unable to resist towards the wall of heaven, which opening they leaped down with horror and confusion into the place of punishment prepared for them in the deep. Messiah returns with time to his Father.
All night the dreadless angel unpursued through heaven's wide champaign held his way, till morn, waked by the circling hours, with rosy hand unbarred the gates of flight. There is a cave within the mount of God, fast by his throne, where light and darkness in perpetual round lodge and dislodge by turns, which makes through heaven grateful vicissitude, like day and night. Light issues forth, and at the other door, obsequious darkness enters, till her hour to veil the heaven. Though darkness there might well seem twilight here, and now went forth the morn, such as in highest heaven, arrayed in gold imperial, from before her vanished night, sought through with Orient beams, when all the plain covered with thick embattled squadrons bright, chariots and flaming arms, and fiery steeds reflecting blaze on blaze, first met his view. War he perceived, war in procent, and found already known what he for news has thought to have reported. Gladly then he mixed among those friendly powers, whom he received with joy and acclamations loud. That one that of so many myriads fallen, yet one return not lost. On to the sacred hill they led him high applauded, and present before the seat supreme, from whence a voice from midst a golden cloud the smile was heard. Servant of God, well done. Well hast thou fought the better fight, who single has maintained against revolted multitudes the cause of truth. in word mightier than they in arms, and for the testimony of truth has grown universal reproach, far worse to bear than violence. For this was all thy care to stand approved in sight of God. No worlds judge thee perverse. The easier conquest now remains thee, aided by this host of friends. Back on thy foes, more glorious to return than scorn thou didst depart, and to subdue by force. Who reason for their law refuse right reason for their laws, and for their King Messiah, who by right of merit reigns. Go, Michael, of celestial armies, prince, and thou in military prowess, next Gabriel, lead forth to the battle these my sons invincible. Lead forth my armed saints by thousands and by millions ranged for fight, equal in number to the godless crew rebellious. Them with fire and hostile arms fearless assault, and to the brow of heaven pursuing drive them out from God and bliss into their place of punishment, the gulf of Tartarus, which ready open wide his fiery chaos to receive their fall. So spake the sovereign voice, and clouds began to darken all the hill, and the smoke to roll in dusky wreaths, reluctant flames, the sign of wrath awake, nor with less dread the loud ethereal trumpet from on high gan blow, at which command the powers militant that stood for heaven in mighty quadrate join of union irresistible, moved on in silence their bright legions to the sound of instrumental harmony that breathed heroic ardor to adventurous deeds under their godlike leaders in the cause of God and his Messiah. On they move indissolubly firm, nor obvious hill, nor straightening way, nor wood, nor stream divides.
Their perfect ranks, for high above the ground, their march was, and the passive air upbore, their nimble tread, as when the total kind of birds in orderly array on wing, came summoned over Eden to receive their names of thee. So over many a tract of heaven they marched, and many a province wide, tenfold the length of this terrace. At last far in the horizon to the north appeared, from skirt to skirt, a fiery region, stressed in battalious aspect, and nearer view bristled with upright beams innumerable of rigid spears, and helmets thronged, and shields various with boastful argument portrayed. The banded powers of Satan, hasting on with furious expedition, for they weened that self-shame day by fight, or by surprise to win the mount of God, and on his throne to set the envier of his estate, the proud aspirer. But their thoughts proved fond and vain. In the midway, thou strange to us it seemed, at first angel should with angel war, and in fires hosting meet, who want to meet so often festivals of joy and love, unanimous, as sons of one great shire, hymning the eternal Father. But the shout of battle now begun, and rushing sound of one set ended soon each milder thought, high in the midst exalted as a god. The apostate in his sun-bright chariot sat, idol of majesty divine, and closed with flaming cherubim and golden shields, then lighted from his gorgeous throne. For now, twixt host to host, but narrow space was left. A dreadful interval, and front to front, presented stood in terrible array, of hideous length, before the cloudy ven. On the rugged edge of battle array, it joined. Satan with vast and haughty strides advanced, came towering, armed in adamant and gold. Abdiel that sight endured not, where he stood among the mightiest bent on highest deeds. And thus his own undaunted heart explores. O heaven, that such resemblance of the highest should yet remain, where faith and reality remain not. Wherefore should not strength and might there fail where virtue fails, or weakest prove where boldest, thou to sight unconquerable, his puissance trusting in the Almighty's aid. I mean to try, whose reason I have tried, unsound and false. Nor is it aught but just, there he who in debate of truth hath won, should win in arms, in both disputes alike victor. Thou beauteous that contest and foul, when reason hath to deal with force, yet so most reason is that reason overcome. So pondering, and from his armed peers, forth steeping opposite halfway he met, his daring foe, at his prevention more incensed, and thus securely him defied. Proud art thou made, thy hope was to have reached the height of thy aspiring unopposed, the throne of God unguarded, and his side abandoned at the terror of thy power or potent tongue. Fool not to think how vain against the omnipotent to rise in arms, who out of smallest things could without end have raised incessant armies to defeat thy folly, or with solitary hand reaching beyond all limit at one blow.
Unaided could have finished thee and whelmed thy legions under darkness. But thou seest all are not of thy train. There be who faith prefer and piety to God, though then to thee not visible, when I alone seemed in thy world erroneous to dissent from all. My sect, thou seest, now learn too late, how few sometimes may know when thousands err. Whom the grand foe with scornful eye askance thus answered, ill for thee, but in wished hour of my revenge, first sought, for thou returnest from fight, seditious angel, to receive thy merited reward. The first essay of this right hand provoked, since first that tongue inspired with contradiction durst oppose a third part of the gods, in synod met their deities to assert, who while they feel vigor divine within them, can allow omnipotence to none. But well thou comest before thy fellows, ambitious to win from me some plume, that thy success may show destruction to the rest. This pause between unanswered lest thou boast, to let thee know. At first I thought that liberty and heaven to heavenly souls had been all one. But now I see that most through sloth had rather serve ministering spirits, trained up in feast and song. Such hast thou armed the minstrelsy of heaven, servility with freedom to contend, as both their deeds compared this day shall prove. To whom in brief thus Abdiel stern replied, apostate, still thou errest, nor end will fight of erring from the path of truth remote. Unjustly thou depravest it with the name of servitude, to serve whom God ordains, or nature. God and nature bid the same, when he who rules is worthiest, and excels them whom he governs. This is servitude, to serve the unwise, or him who hath rebelled against his worthier, as thine now serve thee. Thyself not free, but to thyself enthralled, yet lewdly darst our ministering upbraid. Reign thou in hell thy kingdom, let me serve in heaven God ever blessed, and his divine behests obey, worthiest to be obeyed. Yet chains in hell not realms expect, meanwhile from me returned, as erst thou saidst, from flight, this greeting on thy impious crest receive. So saying, a noble stroke he lifted high, which hung not, but so swift with tempest fell on the proud crest of Satan, that no sight nor motion of swift thought, less could his shield such ruin intercept. 10 paces huge he back recoiled, the 10th on bended knee, his massy spear upstayed, as if on earth, wings underground or waters forcing way sidelong, had pushed a mountain from his seat, half sunk with all his pines. Amazement seized the rebel thrones, but greater rage to see thus foiled their mightiest. Ours joy filled and shout, presage of victory and fierce desire of battle. Whereat Michael bid sound the archangel trumpet. Through the vast of heaven it sounded, and the faithful armies rung Hosanna to the highest. Nor stood at gaze the adverse legions, nor less hideous joined the horrid shock. Now storming fury rose, and clamor such as heard in heaven till now was never. Arms on armor clashing brayed horrible discord, and the madding wheels of brazen chariots raged. Dire was the noise of conflict. Overhead the dismal hiss of fiery darts in flaming volleys flew, and flying vaulted either host with fire. So under fiery cope together rushed both battles main, with ruinous assault and inextinguishable rage. All heaven resounded, and had earth been then, all earth had to her sender shook. What wonder when millions of fierce encountering angels fought on either side, the least of whom could wield these elements and arm him with the force of all their regions? How much more of power army against army, numberless to raise dreadful combustion warring, and disturb, though not destroy, their happy native seat? Had not the eternal King omnipotent, from his stronghold of heaven high, overruled and limited their might, though numbered such as each divided legion might have seemed a numerous host, in strength each armed hand a legion, led in fight. Yet leader seemed each warrior single as in chief, expert when to advance or stand, or turn the sway of battle, open when and when to close the ridges of grim war. No thought of flight, none of retreat, no unbecoming deed that argued fear. Each on himself relied, as only in his arm the moment lay of victory. Deeds of eternal fame were done, but infinite, for wide was spread that war and various. Sometimes on firm ground a standing fight, then soaring on main wing, tormented all the air. All air seemed then conflicting fire. Long time in even scale the battle hung, till Satan, who that day prodigious power had shown, and met in arms no equal, ranging through the dire attack of fighting seraphim confused, at length saw where the sword of Michael smote, and felled squadrons at once, with huge two-handed sway. Brandished aloft, the horrid edge came down, wide wasting. Such destruction to withstand, he hasted, and opposed the rocky orb of tenfold adamant, his ample shield a vast circumference. At his approach, the great archangel from his warlike toil surceased, and glad as hoping here to end intestine war in heaven, the arch foe subdued, or captive dragged in chains, with hostile frown and visage all inflamed, thus began, author of evil, unknown till thy revolt, unnamed in heaven, now plenteous, as thou seest, these acts of hateful strife, hateful to all, though heaviest by just measure on thyself and thy adherents. How hast thou disturbed heaven's blessed peace, and into nature brought misery, uncreated till the crime of thy rebellion? How hast thou instilled thy malice into thousands, once upright and faithful, now proved false? But think not here to trouble holy rest. Heaven cast thee out from all her confines. Heaven, the seat of bliss, brooks not the works of violence and war. Hence then an evil go with thee along thy offspring to the place of evil, hell, thou and thy wicked crew. There mingle broils ere this avenging sword begin thy doom, or some more sudden vengeance winged from God precipitate thee with augmented pain.
So spake the Prince of Angels, to whom thus the adversary Nor think thou with wind of airy threats to awe whom, yet with deeds thou canst not. Hast thou turned the least of these to flight, or if to fall, but that they rise unvanquished, easier to transact with me, that thou shouldest hope, imperious, and with threats to chase me hence? Ere not that so shall end this strife which thou callest evil, but we style the strife of glory which we mean to win, or turn this heaven itself into the hell thou fabulest. Here, however, to dwell free, if not to reign. Meanwhile, thy utmost force and join him named Almighty to thy aid. I fly not, but have sought thee far and nigh. They ended parle and both addressed for fight unspeakable, for who, though with the tongue of angels, can relate all to that things liken on earth conspicuous, that may lift human imagination to such height of godlike power. For for like as gods they seemed, stood they or moved in stature, motion, arms fit to decide the empire of great heaven. Now wave their fiery swords, and in the air made horrid circles. Two broad suns their shields blazed opposite, while expectation stood in horror from each hand with speed retired where erst was thickest fight. The angelic throng and left large field, unsafe within the wind of such commotion, such as to forth great things by small. If nature's concord broke among the constellations, war were sprung. Two planets rushing from aspect malign of fiercest opposition in mid sky, sudden combat, and their jarring spears confound. Together both with next to almighty arm uplifted, eminent one stroke they aimed, that might determine, and not need repeat, as not of power at once, nor aught appeared in might or swift prevention. But the sword of Michael from the armory of God was given him tempered so, and that neither keen nor solid might resist that edge. It made the sword of Saturn with stiff force to smite descending, and in half cut sear, nor stayed, but with swift will reverse, deep entering seared all his right side. Then Saturn first knew pain, and writhed him to and fro convolved. So sore the grinding sword with discontinuous wound passed through him, but the ethereal substance closed, not long divisible, and from the gas a stream of nectarous humour issuing flowed sanguine, such as celestial spirits may bleed, and all his armour stand erewhile so bright, forthwith on all sides of his aid was run by angels many and strong, who interposed defence, while others bore him on their shields back to his chariot, where it stood retired from off the files of war. There they him led, gnashing for anguish and despite and shame to find himself not matchless, and his pride humbled by such rebuke, so far beneath his confidence to equal God in power. Yet soon he healed, for spirits that live throughout, vital in every part, not as frail man in entrails, heart or head, liver or veins, cannot but by annihilating die, nor in their liquid texture mortal wound receive, no more than can the fluid air. All heard they leave, all head, all eye, all ear.
All intellect, all sense, and as they please. They limn themselves and color, shape, or size, assume as likes them best, condense or rear. Meanwhile, in other parts, like deeds deserved memorial, where the might of Gabriel found, and with fierce incense spears the deep array of Moloch, furious king, who him defied, and at his chariot wheels to drag him bound, threatened. Nor from the Holy One of Heaven refrained his tongue blasphemous, but Anan, down cloven to the waist, with shattered arms and uncouth pain, fled bellowing. On each wing, Uriel and Raphael, his vaunting foe, though huge, and in a rock of diamond armed, vanquished Adramelech, and Asmodai, two potent thrones that to be less than gods disdained, but meaner thoughts learned in their flight, managed with ghastly wounds, though plate and mail, nor stood unmindful Abdiel to annoy. The atheist crew, but with redoubled blow, Ariel and Arioch, and the violence of Ramil scorched and blasted overthrew. I might relate of thousands and their names eternized here on earth, but those elect angels contended with the fame in heaven, seek nor the praise of men, the other sought in might, though wondrous and in acts of war, nor of renown less eager, yet by doom cancelled from heaven and sacred memory. Nameless in dark oblivion, let them dwell, for strength from truth divided and from just, laudable, not merits but dispraise, and ignominy, yet to glory aspires, vainglorious, and through infamy seeks fame. Therefore, eternal silence be their doom. And now the mightiest quelled and the battle swerved, and May and inroad gold and deformed rout entered, and foul disorder all the ground, with shivered armor strewn, and on a heap chariot and charioteer lay overturned. And fiery foaming steeds, what stood recoiled, overwearied through the faint Satanic host, defensive scars, or with pale fear surprised, then first with fear surprised and sense of pain, fled ignominious to such evil brought by sin of disobedience, till that are not liable to fear or flight in pain. Far otherwise, the inviolable saints in cubic phalanx for advanced entire, invulnerable, impenetrably armed, such high advantages their innocence gave them above their foes, not to have sinned, not to have disobeyed. In fight they stood unwearied, unobnoxious to be pained by wound, though from the place by violence moved. Now night her course began, and over heaven, inducing darkness, grateful truce imposed, and silence on the odious din of war. Under her cloudy covert both retired, victor and the vanquished. On the foughten field, Michael and his angels prevalent, encamping, placed in guard their watches round, cherubic waving fires. On the other part, Satan with his rebellious disappeared, far in the dark, dislodged and void of rest. His potentates to council called by night, and in the midst thus undismayed began. Oh, now in danger tried, now known in arms, not to be overpowered, companions dear, found worthy not of liberty alone.
To mean pretense, but what we more affect, honor, dominion, glory, and renown, who have sustained one day in doubtful fight, and if one day, why not eternal days? What heaven's Lord had powerfulness to send against us from about his throne, and judged sufficient to subdue us to his will, and proves not so, then fallible, it seems, but proves not so fallible, it seems, of future we may deem him, though till now omniscient thought. True is less firmly armed, some disadvantage we endured and plain, till now not known, but known as soon contemned, since now we found this our imperial form incapable of mortal injury, imperishable, and though pierced with wound, soon closing, and by native vigor healed. Of evil, then so small as easy thing, the remedy, perhaps more valid arms, weapon are more violent when next we meet, they may serve to better us and worse our foes, or equal what between us made the odds. In nature none, if other hidden cause left them superior, while we can preserve unhushed our minds, and understanding sound, due search and consultation will disclose. He said in the assembly next up stood Nirok, of principalities the prime, as one he stood escaped from cruel fight, more so while his rival arms to havoc hewn, and clouded in aspect thus answering spake, deliverer from new lords, leader to free enjoyment of our right as gods, yet hard for God, and to unequal work we find against unequal arm to fight in pain. against unpained, impassive, from which we will must ruin needs ensue, for what avails valor or restraint, though matchless, quelled with pain, which all subdues and makes remiss the hands of my test. Sense of pleasure we may well spare out of life perhaps, and not repine, but live content, which is the calmest life, but pain is perfect misery, the worst of evils, and excessive overturns all patience. He who therefore can invent with what more forcible we may offend our yet unwounded enemies, or arm ourselves with like defense, to me deserves no less than what for deliverance what we owe. Whereto with look composed Saturn replied, not invented that, with thou aright believest so mean to our success. I bring which of us who beholds the bright surface of this earth's mould whereon we stand, this continent of spacious heaven adorned with plant, fruit, flower, ambrosial gems, and gold. Why, whose eyes so superficially surface these things as not to mind from whence they grow deep underground, material dark and crude, so spirituous and fiery fume till touched with heaven's ray and tempered they shoot forth, so beauteous, opening to the ambient light. This in their dark nativity the deep shall yield as pregnant with infernal flame, which into hollow engines long and around, thick rammed, at the other bore with touch of fire, dilated and infuriate, shall send forth from far with thundering noise among our foes. Such implements of mischiefs as shall dash to pieces, or where overwhelmed whatever stands adverse, that they shall fear we have disarmed.
The thunderer of his only dreaded bolt, nor long shall be our labor at a dawn. Effect shall stand and our wish, meanwhile revive, abandon fear, to strength and counsel joined, think nothing hard, much less to be despaired. He ended, and his words they drooping cheer, enlightened, and the languaged hopes revived, the intention all admired, and each how he to be the inventor missed, so easy it seemed once found, which yet unfound most would have thought impossible. Yet haply of thy race in future days, if malice should abound, some intent on mischief or in spite with devilish machination might devise, like instrument to plague the sons of men. For sin on war and mutual slaughter bent, forthwith from council to the work they flew. None arguing stood, innumerable hands were ready. In a moment, up they turned, white the celestial soil, and saw beneath the originals of nature in their crude conception, sulphurous and nitrous foam they found. They mingled and with subtle art concocted and adjusted they reduced to blackest grain and into store conveyed, part hidden veins digged up. Nor had this earth entrails unlike of mineral and stone, whereof to found their engines and their balls of missive ruin, part insensitive reed provide, pernicious, and with one touch of to fire, so all ere day spring under conscious night, secret they finished, and in order set with silent circumception and unespied. Now, when fair morn orient in heaven appeared, up rose the victor angels and to arms. The matin trumpet sung, in arms they stood, of golden panoply, refulgent host, soon banded others from the dawning hills. To looked round and scouts in each coast light arms scour, each quarter to descry the distant foe, where lodged or whither fled, or if for fight in motion or in halt. Him soon they met, under spread ensigns, moving nigh in slow but firm battalion, back with speediest sail, the wheel of cherubim, the swiftest wing came flying, and in mid-air aloud thus cried, arm warriors, arm for fight! The foe at hand, whom fled we thought, will save us long pursuit. This day fear not his flight, so thick a cloud he comes, and settled in his face I see sad resolution and secure. Let each his adamantine coat grid well, and each fit well his hem. gripe fast his orb shield borne even on high. For this day will pour down, if I conjecture aught, no drizzling shower, but rattling storms of arrows barbed with fire. So warned he them unaware aware themselves, and soon, in order quit of all impediment, instant, without disturb, they took alarm, and onward they move embattled, when behold, not distant far with heavy pace the foe, approaching gross and huge, in hollow cube, training his devilish enginery, impaled on every side with shadowing squadrons deep. To hide his fraud, at interview, both stood a while, but suddenly at head appeared Satan, and thus was heard commanding loud, Vanguard to right and left the front unfold, that all may see who hate us, how we seek peace and composure, and with open breast.
Stand ready to receive them. If they like overture and turn not back, preserve. But that I doubt. However, witness heaven. Heaven witness though anon. While we discharge freely our part, yea, who appointed stand? Do as you have in charge, and briefly touch what we propound, and loud that all hear. So scoffing in ambitious word, his case had ended when to right and left the front divided, and to either flank retired. What to our each eye discovered, new and strange, a triple mounted row of pillars laid on wheel. For like to pillars most they seemed, or hallowed bodies made of oak or fir, with branches looped in wood or mountain felled. Brass, iron, stony mold had not their mouths, with hideous orifice gaped us on wide, portending hollow truths. At each behind, a seraph stood, and in his hand a reed stood waving tipped with fire. While we suspense, collected stood within our thoughts as mused. Not long for sudden at all once their reeds put forth and to a narrow vent applied, with nicest thought. Immediate in a flame, but soon obscured with smoke. All heaven a deep thoughted engines blazed, whose roar embowled with outraged noise the air, and all her entrails stores, disgorging fall. Their devilish glut changed thunderbolt and hail. Of iron globes which on the victor host, levelled with such impetuous fury, smote that whom they hit none on their feet might stand, though standing else as rocks, but down they fell, by thousands angel and archangel lost. The sooner for their arms unarmed they might have easily as spirits evaded swift, by quick contraction or remove, but now fall dissipation followed and forces rout. Not served it to relax their serried files. What should they do? If on they rushed, repulse, repeated, and indecent overthrow, doubled would render them yet more despised. And to their foes a laughter, for in view stood ranked of a seraphim another row, in posture of disport, their second tire of thunder, back defeated to return, they was abhorred. Satan beheld their plight, and to his mates thus in derision called, O friends, why come not on their victors proud to entertain them fair with open front and breast? What could be more? Propounded terms of composition, straight they changed their minds, flew off, and into strange vagaries fall. And they would dance, yet for a dance they seemed somewhat extravagant and wild, perhaps for joy of offered peace. But I suppose if our proposals once again were heard, we should compel them to a quick result. To whom this Belial makes like game some mood leader. The terms we sent were terms of weight, of hard contents, and full of force urged whom, such as we might perceive amuse them all, and stumble many who receive them right, Had need from head to foot will understand. Not understand. This gift they have besides. They show us when our foes walk not upright. So they among themselves in pleasant way stood scoffing, heightened in their thoughts beyond all doubt of victory, eternal might.
To match with their inventions they presumed so easy, and of his thunder made a scorn, and all his host derided, while they stood awhile in trouble, but they stood not long. Rage prompted them at length, and found them arms against such hellish mischief fit to oppose. Forthwith, behold the excellence, the power which God hath in his mighty angels placed. Their arms away they threw, and to the hills for, for earth hath this variety from heaven of pleasure situate in hell and dead. Light as the lightning glimpse they ran, they flew from their foundations, loosening to and fro. They plucked the seated hills with all their load, rocks, waters, woods, and by the shady tops, uplifting bore them in their hands. Amazed, be sure, and terror seized the rebel host when coming towards them, so dread they saw the bottom of the mountains upward turned, till on those cursed engines, triple row, they saw them whelmed and all their confidence under the weight of mountains buried deep, themselves invaded next, and on their heads main promontorious plume which in the air came shadowing and oppressed whole legions armed. Their armor helped their harm, crushed in and bruised into their substance spent, which wrought them pain implacable and many a dolorous groan long struggling underneath ere they could wind out of such prison, though spirits of purest light, purest at first, now grows by sinning grown. The rest in imitation to like arms betook them, and the neighboring hills uptore. So hills amid the air encountered hills, hurled to and fro with ejaculation dire that underground they fought in dismal shade, infernal noise, war seemed a civil game. To this uproar, horrid confusion heaped upon confusion rose, and now all heaven had gone to wrack, with ruin overspread. Had not the Almighty Father, where he sits, shined in his sanctuary of heaven secure, consulting on the sum of things, foreseen this tumult and permitted all advised that his great purpose he might so fulfill to honor his anointed son avenged upon his enemies, and to declare all power on him transferred, whence to his son, the assessor of his throne, he thus began. Effulgence of my glory, Son beloved, Son in whose face invisible is beheld visibly, what by deity I am, and in whose hand what by decree I do. Second omnipotence, 2 days are past, 2 days as we compute the days of heaven, since Michael and his spouse went forth to tame these disobedient sort had been their fight as likeliest was when two such foes met armed, for to themselves I left them, and thou knowest, equal in their creation they were formed, save with sin hath impaired, which yet hath wrought insensibly. For I suspend their doom, whence in perpetual fight they needs must last endless, and no solution will be found. War very wearied hath performed what war can do, and to disordered rage let loose the ruins, with mountains as with weapons armed, which makes wild work in heaven and dangerous to the main. 2 days are therefore past. The third is thine. For thee I have ordained it, and thus far
have suffered, that the glory may be thine of ending this great war, since none but thou can end it. Into thee such virtue and grace immense I have transfused, that all may know in heaven and hell thy power above compare. And this perverse commotion governed thus to manifest thee what theest to be heir of all things, to be heir and to be king by sacred unction, thy deserved right. Go then, thou mightiest in thy father's might, ascend my chariot, guide the rapid wheels that shake heaven's bases, bring forth all my war, my bow and thunder, my almighty arms guard on, and sword upon thy puissant thigh. Pursue these sons of darkness, drive them out from all heaven's bounds into the utter deep. There let them learn as likes them to despise God and measure his anointed king. He said, and on his son with rays direct shone full. He all his father full expressed, ineffably into his face received. And thus the filial Godhead answering spake. O Father, O supreme of heavenly thrones, first, highest, holiest, best, thou always seekest to glorify thy Son. I always thee as is most just. This I my glory account, my exaltation, and my whole delight, that thou in me well pleased declarest thy will fulfilled, which to fulfill is all my bliss. Scepter and power thy giving, I assume, and gladlier shall resign when in the end thou shalt be all in all, and I in thee forever, and in me all whom thou lovest. But whom thou hatest, I hate, and can put on thy terrors as I put thy mildness on. Image of thee in all things, and shall soon, armed with thy might, rid heaven of these rebelled, to their prepared ill mansion driven down to chains of darkness, and the undying warmth that from thy just obedience could revolt, whom to obey is happiness entire. Then shall thy sense unmixed and from the impure far separate circling thy holy mount, unpinned hallelujahs to thee sing hymns of high praise, and I among them chief. So said, he over his scepter bowing rose from the right hand of glory where he sat. And the third sacred morn began to shine, dawning through heaven. Forth rushed with whirlwind sound the chariot of paternal deity, flashing thick flames, will within will undrawn, itself instinct with spirit, but convoyed by four cherubic shapes. Four faces each had wondrous, as with stars their bodies all, and wings were set with eyes. With eyes the wheels of beryl and careering fires between, over their heads a crystal firmament, whereon a sapphire throne inlaid with pure amber and colors of the showery arch. He in celestial panoply all armed of radiant urine, work divinely wrought, ascended. At his right hand victory sat eagle winged, beside him hung his bow and quiver with three bolted thunder stored. And from about him fierce effusion rolled of smoke and bickering flame and sparkles dire, attended with 10,000 cents. He onward came, far off his coming shone, and 20,000, I their number heard, chariots of God, half on each hand were seen.
He, on the wings of cherub, rode sublime on the crystalline sky. in sapphire throne, illustrious far and wide, but by his own first seen, them unexpected joy surprised. When the great ensign of Messiah, placed aloft by angels born, his sign in heaven, under whose conduct Michael soon reduced his army, circumfused on either wing, under their head embodied all in one. Before him, power divine his way prepared. At his command, the uprooted hills retired each to his place. They heard his voice and went obsequious. Heaven his wonted face renewed, and with fresh flowers hill and valley smiled. They saw his helpless foes, but stood abjured, and to rebellious fight rallied their powers insensate, hope conceiving from despair. In heavenly spirits could such perverseness dwell, but to convince the proud, what sign away? Or wonders move the obdurate to relent? They hardened more by what might most reclaim, grieving to see his glory at the sight took envy, and aspiring to his height stood rear-mettled fears, by force or fraud, meaning to prosper, and at length prevail against God and Messiah, or to fail in universal ruin last. And now to final battle drew, disdaining flight or faint retreat, when the great Son of God to all his host on either hand thus spake. Stand still in bright array, ye saints, here stand ye angels armed, this day from battle rest. Faithful hath been your warfare, and of God accepted. Fearless in his righteous cause, and as ye have received, so have ye done invincibly. But of this cursed crew, the punishment to other hand belongs. Vengeance is his, or whose he sole appoints. Number to this day's work is not ordained nor multitude. Stand only, and behold God's indignation on these godless, poured by me. Not you, but me they have despised, yet envied. Against me is all their race, because the Father, to whom in heaven supreme kingdom and power and glory appertains, hath honored me according to his will. Therefore, to me their doom he hath assigned, that they may have their wish to try with me in battle, which the stronger proves. They all, or I alone, against them, since by strength they measure all, of other excellence not emulous, nor care who them excels, not other strive with them. Though is terror his countenance, too severe to breath. The foes made out their starry wings with and the of his fear carried forward. As
മിക്സിയാണ് ഉണ്ടാക്കിയ സാധനം അത് ഞാൻ ചുമ്മാ പച്ചക്കറി കൊണ്ട് ഒരുമിച്ച് ഇടുന്നതേ ഉള്ളൂ.
as night, under his burning wheels, the steadfast Empyrean shook throughout, all but the throne itself of God. Full soon among them he arrived, in his right hand grasping 10,000 thunders, which he sent before him, such as in their souls infixed plagues. They astonished, all resistance lost, all courage, down their idle weapons dropped, over shields and helmet heads he rode.
Of thrones and mighty seraphim prostrate, that wish the mountains now might be again thrown on them as a shelter from his ire. Nor less, on either side tempestuous fell his arrows from the four-filled visage foe, distinct with eyes, and from the living wheels, distinct alike with multitude of eyes. One spirit in them ruled, and every eye glared lightning and shot forth pernicious fire among the accursed that withered all their strength, and of their wonted vigor left them drained, exhausted, spiritless, afflicted, fallen. Yet half his strength he put not forth, but checked his thunder in mid-volley, for he meant not to destroy, but root them out of heaven. The hour overthrown he raised, and as a herd of goats or timorous flock together thrown, drove them before him thunderstruck, pursued with terrors and with furies to the bounds, and crystal wall of heaven, which opening wide, rolled inward, and a spacious gap disclosed into the westful deep. The monstrous sight struck them, with horror backward, but far worse, urged them behind, headlong themselves they threw down from the verge of heaven, eternal wrath, burnt after them to the bottomless pit. Hell, hear the unsufferable noise, hell saw heaven, running from heaven, and would have fled affrighted, but strict fate had caused to dip her dark foundations, and to fast had bound. 9 days they fell, confounded chaos roared, and felt tenfold confusion in their fall. Through his wild anarchy, so huge a rout, encumbered him with ruin. Hell at last, yawning, received them whole, and on them closed. Hell, their fit habitation fraught with fire, unquenchable the house of woe and pain. This burden heaven rejoiced and soon repaired her mural breach, returning fancy troll, sole victor from the explosion of his foes, Messiah. His triumphal chariot turned to meet him all his saints, who silent stood eyewitnesses of his almighty acts. With jubilee advanced, and as they went, shaded with branching palm, each order bright, sung time and him sung victorious king, son, heir, and lord, to him dominion given, worthiest to reign. He celebrated road triumphant through mid-heaven into the courts and temple of his mighty father throned on high, who into glory him received, where now he sits at the right hand of bliss. Thus, measuring thing in heaven by things on earth at thy request, and that thou mightst beware by what is past to thee I have revealed, what might have else to human race been hid. The discord which befell and war in heaven among the angelic powers, and the deep fall of those too high aspiring who rebelled with Satan. He who envies now they start, who now it plotting, how he may seduce thee also from obedience, that with him be revived of happiness thou mightst partake, his punishment, eternal misery, which would be all his solace and revenge, as a despite done against the Most High. Thee wants to gain companion of his woe, but listen not to his temptations, warn. Thy weaker let it profit thee to have here by terrible example the reward of disobedience. Firm they might have stood, yet fell remember, and fear to transgress.
Ma'am? So that was the
Dear
end.
friends. Yes, Medhavi, you can speak.
No, ma'am, I was calling you only.
Thank you, dear friends. That was the end of Book 6 of Paradise Lost. We have attempted to do our best. We have been able to complete so many books which you have read with us. Thank you for your support, everybody. Please forgive us for our mistakes and any unprofessional aspects of the video, but this is not a professional reading or professional video. It is an attempt of eager students who are trying to share their passion for literature and classics. So we will meet again next week. And thank you all once again. If you wish to join our reading sessions, you can post a comment in our chat box and we will get back to you with the link of the Telegram group. Thank you all. Thank you very much, Reading Club members and dear viewers. I'm ending the session.
Thank you, ma'am.